DeepSeek just shipped its flagship as a full release, V4 Pro, version 0813. The price works out to roughly 146 of a blended Fable 5 workload. The claimed agent benchmark gains look enormous, and every one of those numbers comes from DeepSeek itself. Nobody outside the company has checked a single one. Here is what is solid, what is claimed, and what is wrong. Start with what is not in doubt. DeepSeek's own pricing page now lists a DeepSeek V4 Pro endpoint, backed by a model version called V4 Pro 813. OpenRouter carries the same model, dated 12 August 2026, and describes it, their words, as the GA release of DeepSeek V4 Pro, one provider forwarded directly. So this is not a rumor and not a screenshot of a benchmark. The model is live, and you can buy it today. Which makes the first real question a simple one. What does it cost? All prices here US dollars per million tokens, and direction matters. On the Pro endpoint, cache it input costs $0.003625 per million tokens, a full million of them for well under half a cent. A cache miss is $0.435 per million. Output is 0.87. The cheaper sibling, V4 Flash, runs 0.14 on a cache miss and 0.28 on output, with the same 1 million token context. One more line on that same pricing page, DeepSeek says it plans to raise API pricing, with a significant increase expected. So treat these numbers as launch prices, not promises. So what did Seek build for that money? The architecture numbers are widely repeated but not independently audited, so attribute them to DeepSeek. The company reports a mixture of experts design, 1.6 trillion total parameters, 49 billion active per token. It describes two attention variants, compressed sparse attention and heavily compressed attention, and says that at the 1 million token setting, they cut single token inference compute to 27% and the KV cache to 10% of what v3.2 needed. Context is 1 million tokens, maximum output 384,000. Pre-training is recorded at more than 32 trillion tokens. Remember the efficiency claims. They return later in a misleading form. Next, the numbers doing the marketing. These come from DeepSeek's own comparison chart, circulated on social media and reproduced by blogs. And the baseline is the V4 Pro preview, not a competitor. DeepSeek reports terminal bench 2.1 moving from 72.1 to 87.9, CyberGym from 52.7 to 83.3, DeepSWE from 12.8 to 62.7, that is, plus 49.9 percentage points, not a multiplier, and one fact checker has already flagged that exact confusion in the coverage. DSBench hard, 31.1 to 67.2. Nobody outside DeepSeek has reproduced any of it. Here is the art that makes this release interesting. On 31 July, DeepSeek's cheap model, V4 Flash, at $0.14 per million input tokens on a cache miss, was reported to beat the V4 Pro preview on 9 agent benchmarks. 2 weeks later, the flagship's general release arrives, and its headline claim is precisely that it has retaken the agent lead. So the question is not whether V4 Pro is good, it is that a 1.6 trillion parameter flagship had to answer its own cut price sibling, and every number in that answer is currently self-reported. A second set of numbers comes from Unite.AI, and their table is labeled V4 Pro Max, which is not the same string as V4 Pro 0813, and no other source uses that name, so treat these as Unite.AI's reporting, not confirmed 0813 results. They report SWE-bench Verified at 80.6, GPQA Diamond at 90.1 pass at 1, live code bench at 93.5, and a Codeforces rating of 3206. One caution, their terminal bench row is version 2.067.9 against GP 5.475.1. The agent chart used 2.1 different versions. Do not compare them. Quick break. Everything I just checked. The CVE record, the vendor's own rating, the patch date, that is a phase 0 checklist. It is free at hiddenstatedrift.com/verify. If you want the version where we run it against your stack, that is the mastermind. Links below. So where does that leave it against the field? Still reported, still unverified. On SWE-bench Verified in Unite.AI's table, 80.6 sits level with Gemini 3.1 Pro and just behind Claude Opus 4.6 at 80.8. On humanity's last exam, 37.7 trails Gemini's 44.4. And kingy.ai's fact-check notes, Fable 5 still leads on DeepSWE by 7.3 points, and on SWE-bench full stack by 6.1. The honest summary, they trade wins, and Fable level is doing too much work. But Fable adjacent at this price is still the story. Which brings us to the slogan. Kingy.ai fact-checked the circulating line that V4 Pro costs 1/57th the price of Fable 5. Fable 5 is $10 per million input tokens and 50 per million output. V4 Pro 0813 is 0.435 in and 0.87 out. So output alone really is about 157. But base input is about 1/23rd, and a realistic blended workload lands near 1/46th. The slogan compresses three different claims into one number, and the fact check calls it misleading. It flags a second conflation too. The architecture's KB cache efficiency is not the same thing as the prompt caching discount on your bill. One is an engineering property, the other is a pricing policy. Numbers on paper then. What do practitioners find in the first hours? One Hacker News commenter ran the same task on two models. DeepSeek V4 Pro worked for 12 minutes, cost 12 cents, and shipped a bug. Grok 4.6 worked for 3 minutes, cost $1.41, and did not. The cheap run failed the task. The expensive one passed. A second commenter reported that on a complex Docker setup, V4 Pro had a few issues where GPT 5.6 Tera had none. On the other side, one user said their credit balance now barely moves even at max setting, and another estimated roughly 60 times cheaper than Opus once typical cache splits and agentic workflows are counted. The same thread had the pushback. One commenter warned these are non-deterministic systems and a single trial should not update your priors much at all. Another dismissed AI benchmarks outright as nearly worthless. A third argued the harness carries almost equal, if not more, weight than the model itself. And a fourth turned that around. If the model cannot figure out simple tools, how is it supposed to figure out complex problems? One more caution on privacy. A commenter noted DeepSeek's privacy policy is unusually permissive. The company can train on your prompts and completions. If you send client code through this API, that clause is part of the price. Now the spine of this story, what is not verified. No third-party benchmark results exist yet. The independent tracker benchable.ai shows an empty results section for this model. DeepSeek's official changelog has no entry for the 13th of August. Its latest is the 31 July flash update, which said the Pro release would follow. And open weights for the 0813 build are not published, despite a public repo. So, state the distinction exactly. This rollout is underdocumented, not imaginary. The pricing record and the OpenRouter route establish availability. What they cannot establish is whether any of the performance numbers are true. So how do you act on it? The fact-checker's verdict, quoted verbatim, a live, exceptionally inexpensive API model with vendor-reported Fable-adjacent agent performance, independent testing, and an explicit 0813 weight release, still pending. In practice, then, if your workload is price-sensitive, the price is real and testable today. Run your own harness on your own tasks. If you need the agent numbers to be true, wait for replication. Treat every figure in this brief as a claim with a name attached, not a fact. And remember, the pricing page itself warns a significant increase is coming. If you test before the cheap tier reprices. That's the read. Buy the price today. Wait on the performance claims. The full written analysis, every figure and who reported it, is linked below. And this brief is also a podcast episode on Frontier Watch. This is independent analysis. We are not affiliated with DeepSeek, Anthropic, OpenAI, or OpenRouter. And if you want to work through shifts like this with people who track them every week, the HSD Mastermind is in the description.